Welcome to the Spotlight On series, where we get to sit down and speak to some of the most inspirational market leaders from some of the UK's most exciting brands. We learn about their careers, their challenges and their achievements, all to inspire you to help you grow your careers. Ed, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us on the Spotlight series, where we look to talk to marketing leaders from up and down the UK, and you happen to be the first one on the chair, so thanks again.
Thank you.
I know you're going to be a bit too humble doing your own intro, so to set the scene a little bit, Ed has dominated the search engines for a decade. You've gone from working as a programmer right way back when to sort of leading some of the most forward-thinking, advanced and innovative SEO strategies in your current position at the moment. But for our viewers, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, what you're currently doing at the moment?
Yes, so I work for an insurtech business at the moment called Lecker, so we're aiming to flip insurance on its head. I am leading the SEO strategy at Lecker, so engaging in all things kind of content related, but also targeting audiences that are likely to convert.
Well, how have you found the transition from agency life to in-house?
It's good. I think I've had previous in-house roles as well, but I would say certainly pace is a difference. But I think working in an agency allowed me to prioritise like impact and things that can actually deliver performance and things like that. So I think that's a few people in the business have said that they've noticed that as well, in terms of very much on it in terms of getting things done and stuff. So yeah, I think it's boded me well going into that position now, but certainly a different environment in terms of way more time in terms of like storyboarding, researching and things like that.
And so now that you're, let's say, top of your game in-house, what does a typical day look like for Edd Wilson?
So I've got more involved with like people management, so ensuring that's kind of on board and everyone's aligned with what they're doing. I think a lot of the time is focusing on processes, because you can't always oversee everything, but it's understanding the steps that can influence what you're trying to achieve in a business. So if you're able to understand a little step that influences what you're trying to implement, I think it's trying to get involved within that and ensuring that step is involved, but then also understanding other objectives in the business and hopefully aligning with what you're trying to achieve and aligning them both.
And so do you find, now that you're shifting a little bit more into the people side of things and being more aligned presumably with senior members of that particular business, how are you staying relevant? How are you ensuring that you're kind of still doing the most innovative sort of campaigns, the most innovative strategies, whilst also taking on the additional responsibilities?
I think staying online in terms of like Twitter, I think the great thing about the marketing community, and especially SEO as well, is there's a great community behind it. So there's a lot of people that invest in case studies, blogs, etc., always touching upon that. A lot more video content now, which is super useful. I know Get Impression invested in a lot of like educational pieces, which is great for people like me to kind of really keep on top of that. But also just like understanding companies in like emerging areas, understanding what they're learning. I think I'm always been big on understanding what websites are growing well and understanding what they're investing in as well. So yeah, a mixture of like self-educational and stuff of like keeping afloat on Twitter, but also really focused on websites and tech that have been emerging in the space.
Let's take things like back a little bit. So you're kind of where you are now. There must have been points within your career where perhaps you had a choice to either specialise or to generalise. Can you talk me through any of those moments where you took a decision to very much focus on the SEO side of stuff? Was it very early on into your career, or did you kind of move halfway through and then decide to specialise?
Yeah, so I was a failed web developer, so I wanted to get focused on development and coding and things like that, but then SEO was like a shiny object in the world of marketing, so kind of that was my first time of like understanding I wanted to specialise in a specific area. Later on it came at Impression, when I was very much like a generalist SEO. I kind of had experienced across a lot of disciplines of my channel, but then took a shining towards a specific area and knew I could learn a lot around that specific subject, and have always been kind of loved going down like rabbit holes and things like that. So yeah, I started the career, but then also at Impression I kind of started to focus on the technical SEO side of things for a good few years as well.
So So I guess a lot of our sort of watchers will be quite interested. There'll be at various different points within their career. A lot of them might be starting out for the first time. Like, where would you go if you were to start out in marketing now? Like, what do you think would be a realistic place to test or to learn whether this is a particular career path for you?
I think it's something I did at the start, but I think the industry now is so much more accessible in terms of resources online. Like with the introduction of like YouTube and online courses, there's so much accessible and like non-for-profit organisations that help people learn about marketing in general. And it's something that I did early on, is just set up a website, learn about the functions of like a CMS, such as like WordPress or Webflow. There's so much like great things out there, even like Shopify, even setting up like a web store, or even if you don't go through with it. I think just testing out, learning things, and I think that's appealing to companies as well. If you've gone away and set up a blog on your hobby and you've installed an analytics tracking code or anything like this, I think it just allows you to start like, learning and establish like a passion for these specific areas. So just go away, set up a website is like my ultimate thing for anyone that wants to be involved within marketing.
Yeah, let's have a look at your career as a bit of a timeline. Can you start off with you mentioned that you kind of got into web development as your entry point. You admirably acknowledged it was a failed start to your career, but talk me through your first position. What were you doing? What were you interested in, and then what did it evolve into?
Yeah, absolutely. So I worked for a local agency in Nottingham, quite small, and working on small clients as well. So I was involved in kind of a general search marketing area of there, so focused on SEO and paid media. I loved SEO in that area as well, so I just invested like 2 years of my time just learning about within that local environment. And then moved down to London to work for a bigger agency in London, working on bigger clients and working with people that have been working in that industry for about 10-15 years. So it was great to absorb their information and experience and learn a lot more about dealing with bigger clients in that environment too. I was fortunate then to get a senior position quite early on in my career. So this was for a home interior company that are kind of a leader in their space. So I was able to go in and focus on kind of the SEO area, and was the first member of that team. And they were suffering at the time in terms of their organic performance as well. So I looked to kind of really reposition them in that space within 12 months, and gave me a lot of confidence.
And talk us through the roles you had when you were agency side here at Impression.
So I came in just as like a general SEO strategist, so that was focused on all areas of SEO. I then took a shine into like the technical area, so I spent around 2-3 years focusing on enterprise websites and how they work, and focused on the more technical area of SEO. But I guess due to my experience on delivering performance and things like that, I started to pivot towards like strategy. So took up kind of a strategy position at Impression, focused on the organic area, and then became head of SEO strategy, where I look to focus on how the team approaches SEO strategy and delivers growth for businesses.
And the time here at Impression was particularly fun, right? Mm-hmm. I remember when you joined the company, your desk was pretty much had to be lifted up every time anyone wanted to leave the room and go to the toilet, and you were part of the journey right the way through till we were sort of 70-80 people. So you worked on lots of different accounts, you experienced lots of different things, right? Yeah,
it's so much fun. I think that was a big thing I take away from the side of things, in terms of not just dealing with the clients that I did at Impression, but like the growth as the agency and how the teams evolved, even watching people such as yourself and other members of the team, how they just grew into their roles and stuff like that. It was a really exciting time. So whilst it was great working on the clients, it was great to see the actual growth of the business too.
You mentioned a couple of really interesting points there around like things that helped you progress. You mentioned you started off sort of in a smaller agency working on smaller budgets, and then moved to a larger agency with larger budgets. But you also mentioned having sort of more senior people or more experienced people to learn from. Like, just how important is that, or was it for you particularly in terms of your progression, like having those people that you could look up to or that you could learn from?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I like to go into a business and act like a sponge. So just basically absorb all the information and learn from it. I think in the smaller agency, just because it was like that, it was small, there wasn't that kind of senior expertise that I could necessarily kind of lean on. Whereas when I went into the big businesses, the big agency, sorry, there were people that had been in that environment for 10, 15 years, and I was automatically able to understand and learn so much more. And it was a case that it was challenging because everything, every day was kind of new to me, all the information was new. So you can kind of feel like fatigued by it, but also you can, after 6 to 7 months, you're automatically thinking, wow, I've learned so much stuff in this space of time.
And are you now trying to play that role in your company that you're working at now? Are you trying to bring everyone along with you and trying to act as that person that can offer the advice?
Absolutely. I think curiosity is such a big key feature. I think what's also key, and I think this is from from a senior person looking in now, is you learn so much around these people going away and learning from you, because they'll be testing new things out and bringing new things to a table. So it's kind of a two-way street in terms of, yes, they can be enticed by what you're teaching them, but they'll also bring things to the table as well, because they're going away and discovering things and also it's just like a new way of thinking as well, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Bit of a big question for you, but can you talk me through any career-defining moments for you? Something that really helped you level up and progress faster than perhaps you would have done if you hadn't taken that role?
Yeah, it's a tricky question. I think the one my mind automatically goes to is my transition into leaving that agency in London and going towards a home interior company within Nottingham. At the time, they were suffering a lot from their loss in organic visibility. It was having a huge impact on their financials, and it was my first role in kind of leading that channel, and whereas previously I was hiding behind someone at a company in terms of an executive role, whereas I've taken over the strategy of this as well. So that was, I was able to, within the 12 months, kind of turn things around, and that was the first time I actually kind of believed in myself in terms of, wow, I can actually do this. So I'd say that was when I had confidence in what I did as well. So
there's lots of discussions at the moment in the industry. Do I work agency and have that fast-paced but opportunity to learn, or do you potentially go and work in-house and have slightly better pay potentially, but also the opportunity to focus on one particular thing? Talk me through the values of working at agency side at the moment.
Yeah, so I'm a huge advocate of working at an agency. I think it's taught me so much, and I think in terms of pros of working at an agency, I think foremost it's the experience you learn from. So I think if you're going into an agency that has people across so many disciplines, you can learn from so much, not just within your channel but other areas of the business. I think that's a key one. I think the wealth of experience that you have dealing with a wide range of clients, so you're not just working on e-commerce, you're working in SaaS, or you're working in a different industry. I think you're able to understand what you like, but also learn a lot from those specific industries and areas as well. And also I think, whilst it is fast-paced, and you could class that as a con as well, I guess, but I think certain people will enjoy the fast-paced environment, and I think what it does allow you to do is really focus on your time of where you should spend it. So if you are working on a specific task, you really analyse if it's actually driving value towards the client that you're working on or anything like that. So I'd say they are my biggest pros.
Cool. And just to make sure this isn't too biased, talk to me about the benefits of working in-house.
I'd say working in-house, when you're working at an agency, you're so obsessed with the overall marketing side of things, whereas you learn less about the business financial side of things as well. So you learn more about the business priorities within in-house as well, and you also are outside that bubble as well. So like I said, whilst it's great learning about marketing areas, an agency in a business, you're learning about product, you're learning more about data, other teams as well. So I'd say that's a big positive. And then on the opposite side of things, whereas I said you do prioritise your time at an agency, and it is the typical case that in-house you have more time and maybe things move a little bit slowly, but I think that is a pro as well, because it allows you a lot more time to research, think about things more thoroughly, and plan and be a bit more strategic with your time and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd say that is also a pro in terms of just having more time to do things.
If you could go back to your 16-year-old self, what advice would you give yourself?
Test more. I think like I said, I started to get my confidence in a later role. I think within marketing especially, I think you always feel like everything you do is going to succeed. Whereas I think on most things that you invest within marketing will fail. It's just the one or two things that perform well that you can double down on. So I would say test more and just be more curious with things out there in terms of marketing. So that would be one of the things I would tell myself.
Cool. And then today's obviously a very different landscape from when you perhaps started. What about someone looking or to enter into the industry now, or someone that's kind of early on into their career? What advice would you give them to follow a similar path as yourself?
I think it's always good to get a general view of everything. Like I said, I think once you focus on specific areas across the board, you'll take a shine to a specific area. I think then just kind of throw yourself in it. I think what helped me is being curious in my career and testing things out. I think marketing technology is so accessible now. You can set up websites using, WordPress, anything like that. You can set up testing tools. I would say kind of just throw yourself at it. I think it's great to get a general view of everything marketing, spend 1 to 2 years getting an understanding of how that functions, and then if there's anything like a channel or anything area of marketing that you enjoy, kind of hopefully that will shine out and something that you enjoy, and then you can follow that path and just really kind of throw yourself at it.
That's great advice. Ed, I can't thank you enough for making this so easy as our first one. Hopefully we see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. For more content like this, don't forget to sign up to our newsletter, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on social.